like to thank Amnesty International Leicester Group and Christians Aware, and of course George and Mama for this kind invitation and for having me here in Leicester. This is my first time in Leicester, and so far it's good and nice. I enjoy it. It is a great pleasure for me to be here today, and also an honor because it is so nice to see many of you here, especially on Saturday, as the weekend, isn't it? Where some people would be somewhere else. But you are here today because you care about human rights and you care about international issues. And most of all, because you care about Burma. And that makes me very pleased to be here and to talk to you about what is going on in Burma. In my talk, I would like to focus mainly on the human rights situations. And there are so many things to talk about Burma. So many good things, so many bad things. But as we know, we have limited time. So I would like to focus on the human rights situation in Burma. And I would like to show you some pictures as well. Some of the pictures are quite graphic. So if you don't like it, please move away. It's coming. Can you see it clearly?
Yeah.
Okay, it's
Do we want to close the
When I think about Burma, I always think about the nice things. I think about the mountains, about the rivers, the people, the culture and food, and the beautiful things, flowers, butterflies, and the forest. All these beautiful things. But unfortunately, I can't think about Burma without thinking about the human rights situation. Some of you may already know about Burma, and some of you who doesn't know much about Burma, don't worry, because I will explain briefly about Burma, and also you can find out more. And there are informations on the internet and books and other literatures. When we talk about Burma, there are two types of Burma. One type of Burma is where you hear about the pagodas, about political prisoners, about democracy icon for Aung San Suu Kyi, and also the Buddhist monks. And some of you here might have seen in 2007 when the Buddhist monks took up to the streets, demanded for change, for democracy, and for human rights, and where many of them were killed and arrested, and many of them fled for their lives, and many of them remain in prison in Burma at the moment. But there is also another part of Burma, and this is the part of Burma where many people do not know, and this is Burma where we have ethnic minorities. We have different cultures, different race, different identity, different language, and different national days to celebrate. And this is the area where the government in Burma engaged in attack against ethnic minorities, which has been going on for many, many decades, but has lack of international attention. And this is the part of Burma where I would like to focus on today. And this is the area where the government troops killed, execute people, destroy houses, not just houses and villages, but also crops and food, anything that can keep people to survive. And their soldiers gang rape women and children, girls as young as 5 years old. And thousands of people were forced to flee from their homelands, become internally displaced people and refugees along the border area. I am from Karen, and I was born in eastern part of Burma, Karen state, which is the border of Thailand. In this map, you will see the red spot here in the east. That is where I was born. And we have several ethnic groups, and Burma is one of the most diverse countries with different ethnicity, different religions, different political, social, economical backgrounds. Sadly, in ethnic area, we have the situations where the Burmese army use their military power and control over the population, terrorize the people. And this is still happening today. These people were students and teachers. They were killed by the Burmese government's troops, the Damodar, just simply because they were Karen from different race, different ethnics. They committed no crimes. They were children and teachers. And they were just killed like that. That happened out of sight in the jungles, behind the video cameras, behind the cameras. So the Burmese government got away with these crimes against humanity because there was no accountability. A 9-year-old Naayapok, she was forced to flee from her village when the Burmese army troops attacked her village. She and her father and grandmother, they were running for their lives, and they were running up a hill. And then while they got on the top of the hill, the Burmese troops, the government's troops who were already waiting for them there, just shot them. And her father and grandmother died, but fortunately she survived. This is a Kachin woman. She was pregnant. This accident happened earlier this year in northern part of Burma, in Kachin state. She and her cousin walked out in the street, going to a different village, and on the way the Burmese government troops just shot them, just like that. And she died, and the baby inside her died as well. But fortunately, her cousin was alive, and she told people about this woman's story. Even pregnant woman was killed by the Burmese army, and not just killed, many of them are raped, gang raped. A Kachin woman in northern part of Burma recently, just months ago, she was captured by the Burmese army troops, and then she was kept in a church, and she was repeatedly gang raped by Burmese army soldiers for 3 days. And then she was found by local people, villagers, later, and she told people about her story. And this is what is going on in ethnic area, but not many people know about this. This boy, 7-year-old boy, this was just last month, 2 weeks ago, when the Burmese army launched mortar bombs attacks in one of the Kachin villages, and it hit people, including this 7-year-old boy. He's just a boy. He committed no crime against the government, but the government's troop just killed them. And in the conflict area, the Burmese army troops target civilians. Even one of the UN special rapporteurs on Burma said that the Burmese army was breaking the Geneva Convention by deliberately targeting civilians in conflict areas. But the UN hasn't taken any actions against the Burmese army troops. These men, they were just farmers. They were arrested and kidnapped by the Burmese army soldiers, and they were forced to carry heavy loads, heavy military supplies by the government troops, and they were not given proper food and rest. And when they couldn't walk any longer, the government troops tortured them and beat them into death, and their bodies were dumped in the jungle like that and found by local villagers later. And people, many of them are used as slaves, and their lands have been grabbed and confiscated by the authorities, the government authorities. Many of them are being tortured and are used as human minesweepers. This young woman, I met her in 2010, and she told me about her story. She was only 24 years old when her first went to carry military supplies for the Burmese army troops. She is from northern Shan state, from Lishu ethnic groups. She, in the whole village, every household had to provide someone, one person at least, to go for military service, to carry heavy military supplies for the military troops. In the past, her father went to carry those military supplies. Later on, her father got ill very badly. He couldn't go anymore, and her mother had to go instead. And again, her mother got very ill, and she couldn't go anymore. So this time, it came to her turn. She had to go. And the first time she went with the Burmese army troops, she said she had to carry lots of food supplies for the Burmese army soldiers. And not just her, there were many, many women who were forced to be slaves for the army. And in daytime, she had to carry very heavy supplies. She had to walk a very long way, climbing up the mountains and then going down, up and down. And she had to carry her own food. And after many days, her food got rotten, but she had no choice. She had to eat those rotten food. She wasn't given proper food by the military. And after a long day, she got so tired, and she was hoping to have rest at night. But all of the women, around 30, they were put in different military barracks in the military camps. And the soldiers came in and they raped her. One after one, one after one. She was crying, she was screaming, but the Burmese army soldiers didn't care. They just raped her, not just once, not just twice, not just one person, two people, but gang raped a group of men. And all night she didn't have any sleep. In the morning, she was in tears, she was tired, but she had to carry on carrying heavy military supply for the Burmese army troops. And not just her. She heard other women were screaming as well, and she knew exactly what happened to them. And it broke her heart not to be able to help other people. But when it came to the time, she was pregnant, 5 months pregnant, and she was very worried. Even pregnant women, the Burmese army troops were raping her. So you can imagine other women, what kind of situation they face in Burma. And when it came to the time when her father stood up for her, her father was shot dead by the soldiers. Her father said, my daughter was very ill, she couldn't go to carry heavy military supply for you anymore. And the Burmese army troops just shot him dead. And they couldn't live in the village anymore. They had to flee for their lives. They were escaping, luckily, but they couldn't go back to the house because after shooting her father dead, the Burmese army troops set their house on fire, and they couldn't go back to get the father's body. Luckily, they escaped, and then they ended up in a refugee camp on Thailand-Burma border, and that was where I met her, and she told me her story. She said she wanted to see justice in Burma, and she wanted to see the end of sexual violence against women, and she wants to see peace in her homeland. Many people, especially children, they died simply because of malnutrition and disease that can be treated. Many people die because of malaria, tuberculosis, diarrhea. This disease, if we have medicine, if we have food, enough food, it can save lots of lives. More than 3,600 villages have been destroyed in the past 16 years in eastern part of Burma alone. And in this conflict area, the government troops target civilians. Millions of people are forced to flee for their lives because their homes have been destroyed, because they can't live in their home anymore. And I am one of them. When I was 14 years old, the Burmese army attacked my village. And I had to flee for my life. So we were attacked with air strikes, air bombs. And it was terrible. And in the jungle, we didn't have enough food. But luckily, we survived. We ended up in refugee camp in Thailand. And we got some supplies from NGOs. At that time, I didn't know. But later on, I knew this kind of humanitarian assistance are from organizations, including governments, such as DFID. And some of, most of you here, your taxpayer money. And with DFID, provide humanitarian assistance for refugee camps, together with many other governments. And this kind of basic support we receive, and I'm so grateful for that. And even in the camp, it wasn't safe because the Burmese army troops and their alliance, they crossed the border and they attacked us in refugee camp in Thailand. I was very lucky I survived. And again, I was very lucky because I got scholarship and I came to the UK. And I came as a student, and when I studied, I did my master in politics and development in the University of East Anglia. It was very interesting, and I did my dissertations, my coursework, I did research, some for Burma, and later on I found out more about Burma. When I was in Burma, I didn't know much about what was going on in different parts. I knew the situation in current state, but not in central Burma, not in Kachin, in northern part, or the west in Rakhine and Chin state and other areas. Only when I came to the UK, I found out more about the situation in Burma, strangely. And I started involved in campaigning for democracy in my own homeland. And I remembered when I first came, life was so difficult. It was very strange because although first I was in Bangkok as part of the scholarship, still very difficult in the UK to live in a big city. It was like being transferred from a big jungle and another big jungle, but in the city. So it's so different. I remembered I never got hot water and cold water right when I do the washing, And also, I didn't know how to operate a kettle, even very simple, the technology things. And when I was in Norwich, I wanted to go to London. I got on a train, and then I almost ended up in Peterborough. And then because I thought all the trains from Norwich went to London, I didn't know that trains went to different cities. It was very difficult, and when I used washing machines, my clothes became baby clothes. It was just so different. I thought, oh, how would I survive in this climate, in these situations? I had to adapt. Almost everything were very new to me. But one thing that inspired me a lot was UK is a very tolerant society where you have different race, different religion, different social, economic, and cultural backgrounds. But people can live together because we have the rules of law. And people are accountable for what they do. Unlike in Burma, the military get away with murder. But here, you can't get away with murder. If someone commit a crime, the next day the police would go and knock on the door and arrest the person. But in Burma, it doesn't happen. So this kind of accountability really inspired me a lot to see this tolerant society. And this is exactly what I want to see in Burma. And I experienced democracy and freedom the first hand here. For the first time, when I got my asylum here for the first time, I felt like I was a human. And I felt safe. All the time in Burma, in refugee camp, always had to sleep in fear. Never felt safe. But here, I can sleep all through the night without being woken up, without mortar bomb explosion or airstrikes. And this is the things that I want to see in Burma. That's where I started campaigning by, first I went to the Burmese embassy to join a demonstration. I was there only to find out what is a demonstration. In the jungle where I grew up, we didn't have demonstration. I wanted to see how it was, because we heard that in Burma in 1988, when students led a protest, many of them were killed by the authorities. And I wonder if it would happen here as well. I was a bit scared actually, but I went anyway. And also it was to mark the 60th birthday of democracy icon in Burma, Aung San Suu Kyi. I wanted to know more about her. When I was in Burma, I didn't know her. So I went there to find out about her because everyone seemed to know her and admire her. And I went there, and the organizer said to me, Zoya, do you mind to lead the protest as a master of ceremony? Actually, I had never been to a protest, and I didn't even know Aung San Suu Kyi. But I said yes, and then I said, but tell me what to do. And then he told me to organize this, and then to introduce the speakers, to lead the chanting, and things like that. And then I found myself in front of many hundreds of people, and it was my first time. But somehow I felt quite pleased because I was in front of the Burmese embassy shouting against them. In Burma, there was no way you could shout against the but here in London, I was in front of their embassy looking at the dictatorship flag, and then shouting, "Free Burma, free Burma, free Aung San Suu Kyi." At that time, Aung San Suu Kyi was under house arrest. And for the first time, I feel like I can do something to help Burma, although I'm very far away in London. And Burma Campaign UK saw me there, and also BBC Newsnight did an interview with me afterwards about the situation in ethnic area. in my student room in Norwich, I didn't have a TV. I had no idea what was BBC Newsnight, but they asked me for an interview, so I went into their studio anyway, and I did an interview, and then BBC Burma campaign said they saw me at Newsnight, and they said I did well. I didn't see it, but they said if I would be interested in coming to Burma Campaign UK office once a week and then tell them about the situations in ethnic area and also help them like volunteer once a week. And I thought it was very interesting. So I went into Burma Campaign UK office every week and I helped there voluntarily. And the more I did public things, for example, I spoke in different amnesty meetings and other conferences, the more high profile it got and the more risky for the security as well. Because the Burmese government, of course, they don't want people to talk about the truth, especially the human rights situation in the country. So I also put myself in danger, but I think it is very important to do, because without addressing the problem, how can we solve the problem? So I think it is important to tell the world what is going on in Burma. And the more I do public speaking and people ask me about my personal story, and when I talk about my personal story, and they ask more and more questions, and I find it through campaigning activities to raise awareness about what is going on in Burma, personal experience can become a small window so that people can look through and see what is going on. And I decided to write a book, and then I called it Little Daughter, and that was how my parents called me. I dedicate this book for my parents. My mother died in 2004 because when we were attacked, she suffered from heart problems, but we didn't have medicines and any treatment for her. Even in refugee camp, her situation got worse and she died later. And my father was assassinated by agents of the Burmese government in 2008. And I dedicate this book to both my parents, and I would like to use this as a small window so that people can look through and see the situation in Burma and help take actions to promote genuine democracy, freedom, and development, human rights in Burma. What I want to see in Burma, and what millions of people from Burma who have been forced to flee from their homeland is, we want to go home. I want to go back to Burma, but I can't without genuine peace that guarantees security for millions exiles Burmese like me to be able to go home. That's why we need to carry on, we need to continue to fight for human rights, for our freedom. I believe that regardless of our ethnicity, our economic, political, social background, our gender, our race, our religion, everyone are equal and everyone should be treated equally. And that is what I want to see in Burma. Thank you very much.